cheer for the oil barons. It's pretty simple equations.
Okay, an easier question. How are you? You're the first energy minister from Fort McMurray. That's a big deal. How's everything? How's the opportunities, challenges you're facing? How are you enjoying it?
Well, I love it. I've actually wanted this job since I got into politics in 2004. I never thought I'd actually get it. I'm very, very proud and humbled to have it. I will tell you that I think it's exciting because a lot of people don't know what's in Fort McMurray. They don't know the opportunities there, and they don't know that some of the challenges. When the United States sneezes, Canada catches a cold. Well, can you imagine what happens when Calgary sneezes to Fort McMurray? We are in the hospital in ICU. So I'm just saying to you folks that I'm hoping to bring a different perspective. Now, I do believe in the oil and gas industry. I'm just going to be over here because we're getting some feedback. But I do believe very much in the oil and gas industry. More than that, I believe in Albertans. So what I'm going to do is focus on Albertans and making sure that Alberta families, Alberta industries have what they need. And I think the rest will follow. But there's no question, I feel like I'm moving away from it. If I fall off the edge, I'll know something's going on. But I'm excited because I think I bring another perspective. I've lived in Fort McMurray 56 years. I grew up there, and my parents were serial entrepreneurs. My dad worked at Bechtel, which is the first built the GCUS plant, which is a predecessor to Suncor. And I will say to you that, while all of you think about oil sands, I actually went to the sides of the Athabasca River and dug up oil sands, put it in a bag, and then sold it to tourists. So none of you can say that. But as I mentioned, my parents were entrepreneurs. And so that perspective I have is the boom bust. I've seen a lot of booms, I've seen a lot of busts. And you know what? They're not that great. The booms are great, sometimes. The busts are terrible. How about a little stability in families? How about a little stability for Albertans? That's what I'm going to focus on. But to focus on that, we need to make sure our economy is hot. We need to make sure that our oil and gas sector and our lithium sector and all of the other opportunities that we have are able to do what they need to do. And that means governments have to create a playing field so that you folks can do whatever you need to do. I don't believe in government interference, and I don't believe the government should get involved on the day-to-day scenarios, but I do believe that if we create the proper playing field, you folks will be doing a better job than anybody else will in the same sector to get things done.
Thank you. There's some questions that were proposed from our sponsors and members, so this is the first tough question.
Okay.
Will the Energy Department consider the R-Star proposal as a means to address the burgeoning orphan well liabilities? A version of R-Star called Adopt an Orphan Well has been submitted for review, which may promote excellent progress against orphan well backlog.
Yes, just before I start on the R-Star program, Jennele also worked for a few months for Jason Kenney in the ethnic outreach for Alberta. I just wanted to point that out because without making sure that all Albertans come along for the ride, we're not going to have a very good ride. So I just wanted to say that. She's got good experience on that as well. The R-Star program, you can call a program anything you want. My mom used to say lipstick on a pig, but I won't go that far. I just believe in getting things done. And you know what? We have to get rid of our orphan well scenario. We have some liabilities there, and as a government, we have to skate through the ice properly to make sure that polluter pays. That's our principle. That's the principle in most jurisdictions, and that's our principle. But sometimes polluters run away. And when that happens, the government of Alberta has to be there to pick up the pieces. And whatever the program is called, whether it's R-Star or N-Star or whatever it is, the truth is we have an obligation to clean up these wells and to do so in a way that makes a lot of sense. And we've actually discovered through good discussions, is there feedback coming up? Yeah. Jennele? Don't fall off the edge. But what we've come up with is some ideas. That's better, thank you. We've come up with some ideas on how that we can actually be successful. And I'm not going to go into particulars, but sometimes there are areas where there's a lot of wells, and they're pretty simple to clean up, but they're owned by different actors. Well, maybe what we need to do is look at opportunities so that one actor can clean up one field and another actor can clean up another field, and they can both get credit for doing so. And the cost would be prohibitive to go around and do each well, but maybe it's not so prohibitive to do blanket areas of oil. So some of the things we're looking at are ways that we don't just say to the industry, you have to clean that up no matter what. We're looking at ways to say, how do we make sure the industry can clean it up in a situation that's not going to bankrupt them, not going to cost them a lot of money, but will get the job done. So, you know, to your original question, it doesn't matter what it's called. We just have to fix it, and then we have one ongoing liability. And frankly, folks, right now, it may seem like we have a lot of money, but we don't.
Yeah.
We've gone through COVID, we've gone through the NDP. Both of those things devastate economies. That was supposed to be funny. That was a political joke for the people. But you know, we just have to make sure we clean up those liabilities, because you know, I don't want those liabilities to be around for my grandchildren. I don't want them to be around a long period of time, because they will give us a black eye, and we need to do it better.
In your speech earlier, you mentioned about the Supreme Court decision. Does the Premier Smith government feel confident that the recent Supreme Court decision, which found the Federal Impact Assessment Act to be unconstitutional, will be favorable to Alberta's opposition to the forthcoming federal proposed oil and gas sector emissions cap and the clean electricity regulations?
Absolutely. I was so excited about that. You know, I'm a bit of a geek. I was a lawyer, a litigator, a constitutional lawyer for a period of time. And when I saw before all of this, when I saw the federal government, what they were doing, I knew it was dramatic overreach. Just like, you know, suggesting that the world has said we're going to have clean electricity regulations by 2035. Well, that's the G8. That's not the world. You know, 190 or so countries signed on to the Paris Accord, the Paris Agreement. We have to abide by that because it's an international treaty, but we don't have to abide by the G8. So we're not going to. So, but this decision by the Supreme Court of Canada is a great decision for us for a number of reasons. The first is that court is dominated by judges from Quebec, right? And they came up with the decision that is pro-provincial autonomy. So all I can tell you, folks, is we're going to see a different road from here on out. And you know, maybe the federal government will continue to try to come in our jurisdiction, but the truth is, I think they're just trying to back out gracefully and find an off-ramp so they don't look as bad as they really do look. So. And by the way, I have great relationships with all of the ministers except for Guibo, because I just can't do it.
Streamlining approval and aligning policies with government goals are mentioned regarding the Alberta Energy Regulator. What specific measures does the ministry plan to take to achieve these objectives, and how will they benefit the energy and mining industry?
Well, the first thing is I'm going to make sure that we continue to work with our friends at the AER. They do great work, as I mentioned. The world looks at them as a great regulator and emulates them, and I think a lot of people get frustrated. I get frustrated. By the way, I own 2 construction companies, and if I could do something about municipal governments and the planning and development departments of each and every one of them, I would. But I can't. The truth is we have to have regulatory oversight, and we need to make sure it's the best in the world, and that we set the agenda for everybody else. And how do we do that? Well, we sit down with them, we talk to them. We have consultants that go in and say, how can we make things better? We have industry groups and industries come forward and say, these are the suggestions that we have on how to make it better, how to make it more streamlined. The question is, are we listening? Because governments get that all the time, and I assure you, we are listening. But we have to do it in a non-confrontational position, especially with the AER who works for the Alberta government, the people of Alberta. Like, we can't start fights with people that are doing a great job just for political reasons. I'll leave that to the federal government. What I want to do is work with people to get the right results for the people of Alberta, and we're going to do whatever we can to do that. And sometimes we have to streamline things and make things a little bit better, and sometimes now is not the time. But I truly believe that if we all get in the boat, start rowing in the same direction, we're going to do whatever we need to do to be #1 in the world in oil and gas production and lithium and a few other things that are happening right now.
Fraser Institute rankings as it relates to mining, although improving, Alberta continues to be among the lowest in Canada. Minister Jane, what are the priorities from your office on improving the attractiveness of Alberta for mining companies?
Well, first of all, I guess we're going to have to, find something in our budget for the Fraser Institute, so we can just kidding. Another joke. You said the reporters weren't here, so I can say anything else. Listen, you know what? We haven't been great at mining because oil and gas have dominated. I mean, what a gift to have, oil and gas, plus the opportunity for a really robust mining industry. all I can tell you is that under my mandate, mining is a very serious issue, and we need to make sure that we create the regulatory environment to, again, allow captains of industry to be successful in that industry. And, you know, what else can I do? Well, I'm excited about helium. I don't know if anybody else is excited about helium, but wowzer, we're on the cusp of an amazing helium industry here, especially as the US runs out and Russia's not allowed to sell to us anymore. So, you know, a couple more helium players, by the way, if anybody's interested, and we could have an industry here. And that industry could do extremely well in the North American market. So how do we do it? Well, we create the regulatory environment. We listen to you folks. We encourage you to get involved. We have other things that you may not have heard of. An ACIP program, petroleum, the opportunity to receive 12% back on a petrochemical investment as long as it meets certain criteria. Pretty excited about that. Dow Chemical's excited about it. There's some other companies that are very excited about it. In fact, it's such a successful program that we have people asking about it, and we've now moved it into the opportunity to have for carbon capture and sequestration, ACIP. So now we haven't got the details of that down pat yet, but we're working on it. The Premier's given me that in my mandate letter. That's no secret. But we believe that CCUS, if we do this right, is going to be a huge industry, as you probably heard me in my speech say. Carbon capture, utilization, and storage. Don't miss the utilization. We don't know where we're going to use it yet, but we have some opportunities to do it, enhanced oil recovery and other things. But truthfully, folks, if you have opportunities for us that we're missing, come and tell us. We'll change the regulatory environment, we'll change the legislative environment, and we'll make it more competitive and better for you if we can. We are looking at, you know, one of the things that I've been told is that I make decisions. I do make decisions. I don't like sitting on things because, you know, politics is about waiting to see if something else happens. I'm not much of a politician that way. I've asked for all of the files that have been waiting a period of time in my ministry, and I've said, bring them in so we can make decisions on them and get through. And that's exactly what we're doing. And so if you have those decisions that have been dogs and you've been waiting for 10 years to find out what the AER wants to do or what the government wants to do, now's the time to put a little pressure on so we can get some things done.
You mentioned about CCUS and some other opportunities. Let's talk about SMR, because I know that you went to Korea. Can we share the government's stance on the development and implementation on SMRs in the province?
For sure. I'm excited about all of the options available to us for energy, and especially if we, I know this, our model, our government model in Alberta is a competitive model, and a model that doesn't pick the winners and losers, which means that the people that actually know what they're doing can pick the winners and losers themselves. That means that the people of Alberta will win. So when I went to Korea, and I went to Darlington as well, how many people go and see a nuclear, get a tour of a nuclear facility on their holidays? No? Okay. Well, I went to Darlington as well, and I talked to Minister Smith in Ontario about SMRs. And you know, they're building a couple. They're building, I think, 4 right now, and they've got an order for 72 from Poland. So, is it something that's going to happen? It's going to happen. Is the first entrance to the market going to pay a premium? Probably. First, second, third. That's usually what happens. First entry. The truth is, Alberta's not going to be first. But hopefully we'll learn from the government of Ontario and OPG on all the money they wasted there, which they have. But the truth is, there is opportunities for us to learn. We're also looking at an opportunity to work with Saskatchewan on that. We're working with Saskatchewan on a lot of things. I know that comes as no surprise to most of you. The situation is that SMRs are a technology that several players in Alberta are looking at right now, including Synovus and others. And as we go forward, I think you're going to find that SMRs are going to be part of our energy mix. I hope it is part of our energy mix. And I hope that the captains of industry make the decision on how they want to go. I will tell you that in Korea, I pushed hard, and fortunately I have a great team around me, and we got an MOU from Korea, from their atomic agency, in relation to being sharing information with Alberta. But we also got a semi-firm commitment on them coming to the table with up to 1/3 of the cost of the SMR for the first mover. So, you know, that first mover advantage might actually be there if Korea came to the table and it's the right technology for players in our space. Is it the right technology? That's not for me to decide. X Energy has good technology. There's a lot of good technology out there, but you folks, the other folks that are interested in SMRs, They're the ones that are going to pick whether or not they go with SMRs, and we're going to create the regulatory environment to make it easy to do that, and create a roadmap as well. So, and working with Ontario, working with OPG, I met with OPG yesterday here in my office in Edmonton, and that was a follow-up because I believe that bringing them to the table, we can have good discussions about how to solve these things that are happening.
What about lithium? What is the current status of lithium exploration and production in Alberta?
Well, lithium is an amazing opportunity for us. Wow, I feel like I'm on a dating hot seat or something. You know, I have learned a lot about our opportunities here in Alberta. And lithium is one of those opportunities that is so amazing because it's half produced. It's already in the water. When you want to take lithium and you want to mine it, you have to. My understanding is, and I'm not an expert, but my understanding is you have to crush it all up and mix it all up, put it in water, strain it, and keep the lithium. Great part about Alberta, it's already in the water, so all you have to do is suck the water out, drain off the water, dehydrate, and you've got lithium opportunities. Some of these opportunities, I read yesterday that there's one opportunity in Alberta that is the best in North America. There's others that are great opportunities on concentration, by the way. But we are set up for a lithium bust here. We really are. So, boom. Sorry. That's my chief of staff, Joe Marciano. I talked about boom bust earlier. I just think about the 500 jobs in Fort McMurray. Can you blame me? These are my family, my friends, my neighbors. Folks, these are real people in the industry. And when we make decisions on these industries, we have to think about that because it's not helpful. But yes, a lithium boom.
I wanted to talk about the renewables. I know that there is a current pause. It's until February 2024. What's your plans?
Did I mention I cheer for the oil barons? Could you ask that question again? I need more time to think. That's
What is the plan for the current government with the renewable after the pause? Are you guys lifting it?
If you ask the question twice, it usually comes out differently, but I didn't, so I'm getting. I will tell you this first of all. We have a situation in Alberta that we are leading the country with renewable energy opportunities. We are leading the country with these opportunities because of our marketplace. But now what we've done and what we've seen is we have a not stable grid as a result. We don't have that opportunity. In fact, we've had several opportunities where we've come close to losing power over the last year. I think there was two in December, last December, two. So we've never come this close before in Alberta. And why did we put the pause on? Well, first of all, people are not even going to remember the pause once we come out with the policy, because we're going to come out with policy that is competitive, that is making sure that we have the opportunities available to people that want to be in the industry, but also don't sacrifice our market. So do we want to have brownouts or blackouts here? Not a chance, because you defeat governments on that basis. What we want to do is make sure that we have a stable grid, and we make sure that the alternative energy options can come to the table and be part of that solution, but not in a way that jeopardizes our long-term viability of our grid and the opportunity for Albertans to continue to flick that switch on. And a lot of people don't recognize it, but we have to drive 30% further here in Alberta and Canada than any other jurisdiction in the world. We have to actually turn on the heat so we don't freeze to death here in Alberta. There's things that we have here and have to have here that other jurisdictions don't have and do not understand. And so we have to stand our ground, be firm, and make sure that people recognize that what we're doing is we're doing it in the interest of the people of Alberta. And that's what we're doing on this pause as well.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the Alberta Sovereignty within United Canada Act and the Saskatchewan First Act? What are the major concerns you've been hearing about, and how would you address these?
I'm a big believer in Canada. I think we live in the best country in the world. And I think we live in the best province in the world, in that country. But my country has gone a little bit strange over the last 20 years. I've seen it. I saw it in Ottawa. I spent 10 years there. And in Alberta, I feel sometimes like I'm banging my head against a brick wall. I believe that Alberta's best place for Albertans is within Alberta and within a United Canada that has the thought processes of Albertans. I believe that in Alberta we can show the successes we have that will be so intoxicating that they will be taken to other jurisdictions. Now, I will tell you that in 10 years in Ottawa, I had many discussions with the Bloc Québécois, and the Liberals from Quebec. I've even talked to Justin Trudeau about it. They are changing. They are changing towards our perspective because of what's happening in Ukraine, what's happening in other jurisdictions in the world. There's nothing like turning on the switch and not having heat to make people readjust their values. And right now, I think there's an opportunity to readjust Canada's values, primarily by electing a Conservative government in Ottawa, and that's what I'm going to be working for very soon. But also just making sure we stand our ground and the people see that if you want to come to Alberta, which a lot of people are doing that, if you want to come to Alberta, you're going to receive the best opportunities in the world, bar none. So for me, you know, sovereignty, the Sovereignty Act within Canada means to me that we stand up for Section 91 and 92 of the Constitution, which is the division of powers between the federal government and provincial government. They stay in their lane, we stay in our lane. They can deal with their stuff, we'll deal with our stuff, but just leave us alone and don't interfere anymore. And that's what sovereignty within a United Canada means to me.
Do you think that's what's going to happen? Would they fall through?
It's happening right now. And you know, folks, like you can see the polls. I worked with Pierre Poilievre for 10 years. He's very disciplined. He, you know, the very first day I met him in caucus, and he spoke, I said, that guy wants to be Prime Minister. And he's never changed. And he's focused, he's dedicated, he's smart, he's from Calgary.
So Flames jersey, right?
Oil barons, nice try.
Minister, as your portfolio put you directly as the catalyst for Northern Alberta economic development, how is your office working to ensure that while we are bringing mega projects to the province that will have profound impact on our provincial economy, however, are often for investments, that we are also focused on downtown resiliency and recovery for Calgary and Edmonton by ensuring these investments are also setting up offices? Wow,
I could talk for an hour on that. Downtowns. You may have noticed the offices are vacant. Have you noticed? Have you noticed that 40% of the storefronts in Edmonton are empty downtown? Folks, there's long-term ramifications for this. And if we don't get our people back in the office, and I mean that, we are all going to be suffering. You know, shoe stores, clothing stores. So I won't get into that because I beat that drum so much it's unbelievable. Even in my cabinet colleagues, I believe we have to get back to the office as soon as possible. And that means raises, that means free parking, that means whatever you can do to get people back so they're spending money downtown. But that's another story, and if you want to hear about that, I can talk to you for hours on that because, you know, as a past Downtown Business Association president, as a guy that's been involved in many downtowns, I will tell you that if we don't do something, and I'm saying it twice, we are in big, big trouble as a society. How do we attract people? Freedom. I'm a big believer in freedom. You know, have we seen a huge migration here to Alberta? Yeah. We saw, in the last quarter of last year, we saw 92,000 people come to Alberta. 70,000 of those people were from outside of Canada. Now, what does that say to me? That says that people from outside of Canada who are looking for economic opportunity recognize that Alberta is the place to get it. And how do we make sure that they want to be part of Alberta's solution to Canada and the world? Well, we have to give them the ability to not have so many rules and regulations surrounding their opportunities to start a business, like the planning and development opportunities. We have to make sure that if they see the opportunity to start an oil and gas company or to start some other corporation, that they have the opportunity to do that and they are encouraged to do that, not discouraged from doing that. I was mentioning to some folks here earlier that I've been trying for 3 years to build a not-for-profit kids camp in Fort McMurray, donating 20 acres and a whole bunch of money so they can start it. I'm still fighting with the Planning and Development Department of the City of Fort McMurray. Like, these are things that are happening on a day-to-day basis in Calgary, in Edmonton, right across this province. We need to make sure there's more freedoms for people to make their own choices. And that includes the CPP and the APP. I believe that, you know, if you want an Alberta pension plan, you should be able to be part of the Alberta pension plan. If you want to stay as part of the CPP, stay as part of the CPP. I think the best thing for Albertans is to have the choice of where they want to go. And it's no different. When people see around the world that we have choices here, they will come here. And we have to make sure as a province that we do that. I've just, to let you know, the first month I got into my new portfolio, I went into the department and I said, what trade shows are you going to around the world? I want to know. And I want to know what you're going to do in those trade shows because I want to make sure that those trade shows have a true visibility of Alberta, that we are working the room and working the floor. That's why I spent a week here at the World Petroleum Congress every day. I had, 10, 15 meetings every day. And I did that because I know how important it is that the world sees what we have here, and the world wants to come here. Korea wants to come here. They're talking about POSCO right now, building a steel plant here in Alberta. Wow. That was after my trip to Korea. I think it would be fantastic to be shipping steel out of Alberta into America, the United States. You know, right now, I think Canada as a whole ships about exports or manufactures, sorry, about 12 million tons of steel a year. POSCO in Korea has 2 plants and they do 32 million tons of steel a year. And they do it in a place where they have no natural resources. So think about why they want to come to Alberta. And think about why we want them to come to Alberta. Because they're great captains of industry. They are very, very talented. And you know, if you haven't been to Korea, you should go to Korea. In the last 70 years, they have taken their culture and their society from a place of one of the lowest possible denominators economically to one of the highest. And it's incredible to see, and it's the people that have done it through strategy, through execution, through understanding what they need to do and how to get it done. The people are amazing. And that's why I think Albertans are going to lead the world, because we are too. I'm very positive about Alberta and Albertans. I think that truly the mindset here is unbelievable.
Could you elaborate on specific measures aimed at ensuring that the benefits from these mega projects, including job creation and economic growth, would also extend to smaller communities such as Indigenous groups in Northern Alberta?
You know, the world is looking for social license, and so you know, we lead the world on Indigenous participation, and you're going to see more of that in the near future. And we do that because, folks, not only is it necessary, truly necessary, but it is also a signal to the rest of the world, and I think that signal is a strong signal. You know, when you look at places like Africa or South America, Venezuela, and human rights and what they do to the environment, anybody with any common sense can see that Alberta is the place to be. And Alberta industries lead the world and should lead the world. So, you know, for me, I just want to go around the world bragging about Alberta and Alberta industries and captains of industry, because I think we do it better than anybody else. Indigenous folks are participating, but rural Albertans are not. Not very many. So I say to you folks, you may not realize this, but there's a negative population growth in rural Alberta. Did you know that? People are moving to the cities. Now, I don't know if you know where your wealth comes from, but not much of it comes from the cities, no disrespect. A lot of it comes from our natural resources. And when you fire 500 people in a town of 60,000, people remember all these little towns. It doesn't matter whether it's Lloydminster or Bonnyville or, frankly, Medicine Hat. We need to build communities and stop worrying about share prices so much. I know share prices are important, but the share price will come when you build communities and when you have a long-term plan and vision. They do, and I think the world expects that now. So can you see a theme with me? I believe that building communities is what we should be doing, and the rest will come. But we have such a competitive advantage. And folks, think about it, 4.6 million people, and we punch this far above our weight. Think about what would happen if we had 10 million people there. Think about what would happen to the rest of the world in Canada. Think about what would happen to our electoral possibilities. Because, you know, most elections, federal ones, are lost before we have a vote. And I don't want to see that continue to happen. We need to change the balance of power in this country, or we will not have a country. Not the same one anyways. Maybe 2. Maybe 3. I don't want to see that.
Well, can you provide an update on the government's plan for attracting investments in the energy and mining sectors in Alberta?
You know, this goes along with the other 2 comments I made, is just, I think people have to see what they can do here, how profitable they can be. Profit is not a dirty word. And I know I mentioned the Suncor thing twice. I think Suncor is one of the best companies in the world. So you know, that treats their employees better than any other company in the world. But this last stint made me stumble, to be honest. I just think that, you know, and I'm not in charge. Premier Smith is, and you folks are ultimately. But maybe we need a mindset change. Maybe we need to think a little bit more about families, our kids, our grandchildren, those communities that are just way up there or over there. Maybe they're not. Maybe we should think to ourselves, do we just want to have one world-class city called Calgary? Or maybe we want 3 or 5 or 7 world-class cities. I lived in Surfers Paradise, Australia for 3-4 years. I owned a property there for 10. If I wanted to live there, I had a job offer. Surfers Paradise is the best beaches in the world if you've never been there. I love Alberta. I love Canada. But if they can do it with a beach, why can't we do it with the 3rd largest supply of oil in the world? If Grand Prairie can have 300,000 trading population and a thriving place with no fly-in, fly-out, why is Fort McMurray bringing in 30 to 40 planes a day of fly-in, fly-out workers, a lot from other provinces that pay taxes in other provinces? Anybody following me on this one? Like, are we just rushing to get the oil out of the ground because it's going somewhere? Just saying, folks. And you know, I know I'm not your normal politician. I get that a lot. But like, do we really need to rush the barrels out? Like, isn't it about producing families and communities? And just ask it for a friend.
Can you provide updates on infrastructure investments that are being made to support the growth of the energy and mining sectors, such as transportation and export facilities?
Yeah. First of all, I'm a big believer in free trade and no taxes. I wish we could not pay any taxes because I think things would be a lot better. As a government, our largest investment in the last budget was a twinned highway between Suncor and the Bridge to Nowhere. $117 million, and people don't know what the Bridge to Nowhere is. It was built by Premier Lougheed before there was anything on the other side except for good moose pastures. And it was I think, $12 million bridge. Right now it costs about $120 to rebuild. So it was a good decision by Premier Lougheed back 30 years ago. That investment does not serve one person that doesn't work in the oil sands plant. I just want to tell you that. It doesn't serve one person that doesn't work in the oil sands plant. Because it's 40 kilometers north of town and it's for workers. You know, there is an opportunity, just to be honest, for us to look at strategic infrastructure that is paid for by industry, and they receive benefits from that, to decrease our fiscal capacity in order for us to pay less equalization to the federal government. I don't know if you followed me on that, but let's just say Suncor would have built that road for $117 million instead of the government of Alberta. Well, Suncor could take that off of, let's just say, for example, since nobody's going to talk outside of school here, they could take it off their royalties. Well, that changes Alberta's fiscal capacity, and we don't send some of that money to Ottawa. I kind of like that idea. I'd like to see more money, more infrastructure here in Alberta. And you know, as far as export facilities, it's pretty tough to export stuff by boat out of Alberta. But you know, with our Indigenous friends, we might just have a chance to do that. And I promise you, we're working on that. We are looking at many opportunities, whether it's the West Coast, Hudson Bay, East Coast, South, North, any option, because all options are on the table. And I would just say to you this: if you have an idea on how to increase our export potential, how to increase the opportunities to build communities and to build captains of enterprise, and how to make sure that we are successful, I'm all ears. As you can tell, I've got a lot of them. So God gave me, my dad used to say, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, and the ears are big for a reason. Listen a lot. So I've been listening. That was also a joke. You guys are joking.
How is the government working to create a favorable investment climate for both domestic and international companies interested in the energy and mining sectors?
Well, low taxes is the #1 thing. Let's make sure people recognize if you come to Alberta, you're going to pay the lowest taxes in North America. That's what we're hoping, because they're going to create jobs. So how do we do that? We have offices in. I was talking to James Rajat, who's in Washington last night. We're talking about ways that we can go down to the United States as a concerted group to make sure that people feel that they can come here and invest. We make sure we have offices in different jurisdictions because we know the federal government's not going to help us with that. And frankly, even our people in the federal government offices don't seem to be working to the potential that we want them to. So we're looking at opportunities to make them more responsive and more productive in what they do for us as Albertans. And that just means, working with them, collaborating with them, discussing with them how to do things, and making sure that when we market Alberta, we market to the right places, not just a shotgun blast to the world, but we market through the Canadian Energy Centre or other initiatives effectively and efficiently. Target marketing who we need to target. It didn't say this in my bio, but I have an MBA and a bachelor's degree in marketing and finance. And so I believe in marketing. I believe it works. But it works well when you target it. It doesn't work well when you don't target it.
What initiatives or policies are in place to encourage innovation and technological advancements in the energy and mining sectors?
Well, we have so many different opportunities through the Alberta government, investment arms as well as R&D arms that the government will participate in. We also have Alberta Enterprise Group and different groups in Alberta that encourage innovation and creativity and make sure that they have good communications with the government. You know, the government really, in my opinion, although it's important that it gets involved in R&D and provides stimulus for R&D in particular areas, especially that are successful, I really think that the number one thing the government can do is get out of the way. In most cases of situations where people want to step forward and the government says, no, we have to do all these things first. Oftentimes those things first are just things first for no reason except for they've always been done that way. And I think sometimes we just have to think about, this industry. I don't want to reinvent the nuclear, the SMR timeline or table or the SMR regulations. Why don't we copy best practices from other jurisdictions that have already done it right and wrong and take advantage of that? And that's what we're going to do, and that's what we will do. But I will say this, folks, we are on the cusp of a boom here in many different ways, and I think it's primarily as a result of government policy.
Can you provide information on any upcoming
Do I get paid per question?
Can you provide information on any upcoming regulatory changes, initiatives that may impact this industry?
Well, there's, the AER is, of course, going through a self-reflection moment. They have come up with some great recommendations, over 50, on how to make things a little bit more efficient in some ways, and I think that's something that's great. I was really pleased to see that by the board, and they've stepped up, and we've had great conversations, and we have people involved in that. I would just say that we have 1 minute left. That was a
No, those are one.
No. Regulatory improvement never ever can stop. We have to constantly improve our regulations and our legislations, and the more that we improve them and the more that we are on the cusp of making them and being the leader in Canada usually means that we will actually lead the discussion and we will actually lead economically as a result. So I say to you that, whether it's a regulation or it's the AER or it's legislation, we have to always change it. And if you can think of ways to make it more effective, I am a geek by trade. I spent 10 years in Ottawa doing legislation. That was my job, parliamentary secretaries. It sounds like I do steno work, but I actually just pass legislation. And I had the thrill of passing 27 different pieces of legislation. And I love legislation because it makes the changes real. And when you put a practical note on the legislation and regulations, you actually affect people's lives positively. And I'm excited about that. So if you have opportunities to increase or make better regulation or legislation, please tell us. Because we are literally just a phone call away, and we want to make it better.
This is the last question. How is the government leveraging international trade agreements and partnerships to expand market access for Alberta's energy mining products? And more specifically, I am interested in Article 6 of Paris Agreement.
Okay.
How was that?
Love it. I pressured my department, my chief, to do as many MOUs as we possibly can with as many places as we can. And I meet people say, well, why do you want to do another MOU? Because if we get the discussion started with Korea, if we get the discussion started with Indonesia, if we get the discussion started with Ukraine or Romania or whoever it is, they will go back and talk about that discussion, which will get people excited about what we're doing. So I say, first of all, as many opportunities as we can take to have agreements, not necessarily enforceable agreements, but agreements between different parties in different places in the world it will only do better for us. And so my particular belief is that as many people that come to Alberta as possible, that will be our success. And when I went to Korea, you know, I think we had 3 or 4 people show up from Korea at the hydrogen conference, just as a result of us inviting them. So if you know people around the world, invite them to our conferences. The biggest hydrogen conference in North America, and it was huge, it was fantastic. We're going to lead the world in hydrogen development, folks. Do you know that Asia right now, Korea, China, Japan, they're looking at opportunities to bring ammonia from Alberta to those jurisdictions? Just there's so many opportunities. What we need to do now is make sure that when those opportunities come, that we work with them to get them to invest here. And I believe right now that capital in other jurisdictions is excited about what happened with the Supreme Court of Canada. When they find out, which they may not know yet, but they will know the jurisdictional arguments between Canada and the provinces. And now that they've seen the Supreme Court of Canada come forward with this, well, like, did I mention the boom? Did I mention the boom? It's coming. It's coming, folks. And it's coming because this is the jurisdiction that they want to do business in. That was the last question?
Yes, it is. Thank you so much.